New at 4. Mesa student is among a group of animal rights activists caught here on camera. They were all arrested, and what are they doing? They're breaking into a Wisconsin beagle farm. They go inside, they free a bunch of the dogs. Their group claims the dogs were being bred for animal testing and they wanted to save them. And you can see they cut through a fence, they used a crowbar to get through a door. The Mesa student telling 12 News it was within their legal right to break into that farm.
I say that we have the legal right to rescue dogs who need our help. There's something called the necessity clause that every state, including Wisconsin, has. It says, basically, that it's okay to break a law in order to save someone's life or prevent serious harm from happening to them.
All right, she, I don't believe, has a law degree, but this man does. Josh Colesworth, thank you, Josh, for being here. I appreciate it. All right, so you heard her interpretation.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, obviously any case involving cute, cuddly animals is going to give a huge sympathy factor for those involved. However, legally, these protesters are in a lot of trouble. What they're claiming is that there was a necessity to do this, and necessity is actually a legal defense. However, in Wisconsin, the necessity defense only applies to humans.
So right there, that would throw this case out in terms of that defense.
Exactly. Okay. And another thing for necessity to apply is that it usually has to follow a natural disaster, such as flooding or a fire, and that there is imminent danger to a human being that necessitated what happened, like in this case. So if these people knew that a forest fire was happening and there was an orphanage full of kids and they had to break in through the gate to save them, that would be necessity.
That's common sense, too.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to... So with what they did here, caught on camera, and your interpretation, they could be in some trouble.
They are in trouble, and they could be facing serious felony charges, including theft, burglary, and even possibly federal terrorism charges, depending on the value of the animals that were taken.
So even though they were getting those dogs. All right, so let's move on to something else. Mesa police have submitted charges now against a special agent with the Attorney General's office. Police say he shot and killed his next door neighbor. She had several children, and it was an unusual case. So her name's Maria Lewis. She went for a walk at 2:30 in the morning back on February 28th. 10 minutes later, her neighbor, Delance Marin, woke up to banging on his front door. It was her, it was the woman. So he grabbed a gun, went to the door. He didn't know what was going on. Marin told police he did not remember shooting Lewis at all, saying it was an accident, but she was shot and killed. So now it's been recommended Marin be charged with negligent homicide. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office will ultimately decide what's going on here. But the question I have to ask you, Josh, we've talked about it a number of times. If somebody's trying to break into your house, do you have the right to use lethal force?
You certainly do in specific situations. So self-defense in Arizona is pretty broad. If somebody is just attempting to break into your home and you have a reasonable feeling that your life is in danger or the lives of others are around you are in danger, you're allowed to use lethal force. It has to be an intentional act. And in this case, we don't have that, because the defendant in the case, the investigator from the Attorney General's office,
who was a trained officer, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yep, he was. He immediately told the investigators that it was an accident. And because it's an accident, self-defense doesn't apply. Because in order for self-defense to apply, you have to intentionally do something. You have to intentionally shoot somebody because they were going to shoot you or save your family. You can't accidentally have self-defense.
So if somebody's trying to break into my front door and I grab a firearm and I point it at them saying, don't do that, and it goes off accidentally, you're saying I could be the one who's in trouble.
Oh, yes. And so the defendant in this case would have been much better if he told investigators that, yeah, I thought my life was in danger and I shot her intentionally. But because of that, self-defense doesn't apply, and that's why the charge of negligent homicide was submitted to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, because now the only thing that they're going to be asking themselves is this: whether or not he, having a finger on a trigger and shooting a person on the other side of the door disregarded a known safety that he shouldn't have been able to do in that situation, given his experience.
And we still don't know what caused that mother to go to that point? There's a lot of questions surrounding this case.
A lot of unknowns.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Josh, thank you. We'll see you again a little bit later on in this newscast.